Hello, my darlings. So, today I'm going to read you a couple of quick excerpts from this book, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity by Catherine Ponder. And it's really opening my mind to the truth behind why we often block money from ourselves, why money can be such a free-flowing, easy thing for some people seemingly, and why it can be such a frustrating blockage for so many others. So this might shed some light as to why, even if we want money, we might be holding ourselves back from it. So it says here, perhaps one of the greatest shocks I've ever received was the one that became apparent when I began lecturing on prosperity. I soon realized that many of the people attending the lectures were still trying to resolve that old conflict of whether they should desire to be prosperous. Of course, they wanted money, every normal person does, but they appeared to secretly wonder whether they should seek it or not, especially from a spiritual standpoint. Most of the business people attending the lectures seemed to feel guilty about wanting to be prosperous, though of course they were working hard every day in their jobs to do so. The question, obviously, was still in their minds, whether poverty was a spiritual virtue or a common vice. The conflict in their thinking was setting up a conflicting result in their affairs, which neutralized their efforts to succeed no matter how hard they were working. So what that basically means is that sometimes we talk about money and abundance and prosperity in a free-flowing way that can seem in alignment with, the universe and manifestation. But there might also be another voice in our heads sometimes that is still saying that money's the root of all evil, or that rich people are bad, or that it's too greedy to want money, or maybe even it's your brain is just saying, but what would I even do with that much money? Do I need it? Is it a good thing to be striving for it? And as you can imagine, these two opposing thoughts are going to neutralize or almost annihilate each other, because you've got one story pulling you one way and another story pulling you the other way. And I've written here as a little margin note, it's okay to want to be rich. Own it unapologetically. Soon it became apparent that it would take the expression of some bold, even shocking ideas on the subject to blast out the limited beliefs that had bound these people to mediocre living for years. Realizing this, I spent several lecture periods explaining how God, man, and prosperity are all divinely related. After the initial shock of these ideas had passed, these fine people were greatly relieved and very happy that, at last, they no longer had to feel guilty about wanting to be prosperous. It was then that they began to experience the previously described results in rapid time. Okay, I'm now going to take you on to a couple of pages here, which explains a little bit more as to why we have this conflict in our mind, and a theory as to where it came from. This sort of idea that being rich is bad, and being wealthy is being rich is bad, and being poor is somehow spiritually virtuous. Now, there's obviously more than one influence. I think a lot of films and stories and everything like that often depict the rich man as the evil man, but this is a possibility as to where it stems from. You may wonder why there has been so much talk of sacrifice, persecution, and hard times as necessary phases of the spiritual way of life. History reveals that the inspired yet practical teachings of the Bible continued to be observed during the early centuries after Christ. But soon, religion became more secularized. So this is not saying that it's actually the original teachings, it's saying that they evolved and religion became more secularized, leading to variations and departures from Jesus's original teachings. So it was becoming sort of far removed from the original concepts. Later, the feudal systems during the Middle Ages assured wealth only for the privileged few. So basically trying to keep the riches to a privileged few. During this period, the teaching of poverty and penance was offered to the masses as the only way to salvation, in order to keep people in poverty and to make lack and privation a supposed Christian virtue. Unsuspecting millions were led to believe that it was pious to be poor, a belief which was useful in forestalling revolution among the masses. So basically, there were a few rich people who changed the narrative and brainwashed these people into believing that it's not only okay for them to be poor, but it's their ticket to heaven. It's a good thing. And this was to try and delay these poor people from revolting, essentially. Some of those old feudal ideas about poverty as a spiritual virtue have persisted until today. All of these things we often get passed down generationally, even without us realizing that they may not possess any logic. But they are false, man-made ideas and not God's rich truth for you and me. Thus, make no further excuses to yourself or others for wanting to be prosperous. It's a divine desire that should be given divine expression. You can boldly give thanks that prosperity is your divine heritage, that the Father's desires for you is unlimited good, not merely the means of a meager existence. So, I hope just those couple of excerpts from this book maybe triggered some new thoughts, maybe changed your perspective a little bit. I know it certainly did when I read it. I thought, this kind of makes sense now as to why there are these seemingly really divisive contradictions about whether it's good or bad to want to be wealthy and successful. And I think one of the main goals of this book is to help the reader to truly feel not only worthy of making as much money as you've ever wanted, but to also know that there shouldn't be any guilt attached to the neutral substance that is money. Money is not positive or negative. It's what we connect to it that determines that. And of course, there are bad ways to make money. There are ways to make lots of money that disadvantage other people, that take money and cause people to live a bad life, or that scam people, or that lie to people. And of course, it wouldn't feel good if you made money in that way. But if you can make money in a way, in the limitless number of ways that involve providing a service to make people's lives a little bit easier, bringing value to the world, shining your light and making the most of the natural skills and talents that you have so that they're not wasted, and so that it brings joy or value or entertainment or help or service into other people's lives. Being paid for the value that you bring to the marketplace is inherently good, especially when your intentions are good. So as long as your intentions are good, you can aim and aspire and manifest as much prosperity and abundance as you like. So let me know in the comments what part of those little excerpts rang true for you. Give us a thumbs up if you found this valuable and if you'd like me to read some more from this book. Bye everyone.